Well, in my opinion, Ukraine is slowly but surely dying. And not even because it's being shelled or because it's involved in a terrible war where its best sons and daughters are dying. Plus, enormous amounts of money are being spent, which will have to be paid back by other sons, daughters, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren. But also because no one is fighting corruption. It is simply eating away at our country from the inside, from the outside, lengthwise, crosswise, and diagonally. Well, and a good indicator of what's happening is not even that Yermak was released from the pretrial detention center where, by the way, he was paying for his cell. It was a little room with air conditioning, I think, with top-notch service, lobsters, whatever you want. Well, let's take a look at what happened to Yanukovych's restaurant ship, which is called the Galleon. Yanukovych, well, that is, he ran away or was kicked out, you could say, and his property was expropriated while claiming... I remember this nonsense that Kamaz trucks was supposedly taking cash abroad. Just imagine Kamaz trucks carrying Yanukovych's cash abroad, that's what they were saying back then. And people actually believed it, and they took Mejihiria and that restaurant and everything. But this restaurant called Galeon, you could say it's just like the yacht Pobeda that I've talked about many times. From the adventures of Captain Vrangel from the Soviet cartoon, where two letters, P and O, fell off. And now it turned into Bida, trouble, and that's our trouble. And our trouble sank, and you could say that everything state-owned is sinking in the same way, just like what's happening now, because they took it away, but what to do with it? But nobody needs it. Well, it's public property. Who cares? Let it sink. To hell with it. Basically, the corrupt officials kept being corrupt, and the property ended up out of reach for everyone. And the same thing, I'm sure, is happening with many other things that get nationalized over there, and they say, now we're going to make it, we're going to turn it into Switzerland or Japan or France and Germany combined, or even the USA. We'll catch up, overtake, fly past, outpace, leap over, and jump ahead, but somehow it just doesn't work out. Maybe it's because the people are bad. That's probably it. There are managers like that. They're powerful, but the people are bad. What's next? Next is another disaster. Ukraine still hasn't received those 90 billion euros, which are supposed to be allocated in tranches, but hasn't received them because the EU and Ukraine haven't signed certain 3 documents needed to grant the loan to Kyiv. The money was expected to be received at the beginning of June, but for now the transfer can't happen. The EU and we still need to approve the macro-financial assistance program, which is tied to Ukraine's reforms and circumstances. It turned out just as expected, as sincere Ukrainians would say. What else after that? Well, let me tell you, now let's move on to Yermak, because, well, he's the most famous and powerful manager, the one Zelensky talked about. I'll find it now, and I think he posted it everywhere as shorts.
Yermak is a powerful manager, one of the very powerful managers on my team.
This is basically Odon. He is a very powerful manager among powerful managers, says Zelensky. Wonderful.
I respect him for the results. He does what I tell him to do.
Yes, and what he does, I'll continue now, he does it for Zelensky. As I showed, he does what Zelensky tells him to do on his own. Well, he's strong. Again, just as sincere Ukrainians say, well, now this powerful manager is going to tell us where he got the money from. He himself is poor, as he says. He doesn't have any yachts, steamships, or factories, but he does have some money that was put up on his behalf. So, a significant part of the 140 million hryvnias, which made it possible for Yermak to get out of the detention center where he spent the whole weekend, was provided by 7 private companies that together transferred more than 94 million hryvnias, and that's even more than was needed. I don't know what they were thinking when they sent the money, but apparently Zelensky gave the order to get his friend, comrade, and brother out of those dungeons and let's save the man. The largest contribution was made by a certain forensic science research institution. That's the name of the organization. Honestly, I don't know. It's just like calling a washing machine what it is. But in general, yes, you can also call a store, like a household store for selling washing machines needed at home for doing laundry. The name is good, the company is good. They say that this company, well, it's not mentioned here, right? Was established, it was founded in 2017, participated in tenders until September of 2025, and then after that, well, that's when all this started. Then a specialized management Stroy Electromontage from Dnipro contributed 32 million hryvnias, so it's clearly connected to Yermak. And then a law firm, Delega, well, it has a complicated name, I won't even try, that's 14 million hryvnias. Another private company which deals in car trading transferred 10 million hryvnias, and the law firm Advocat contributed 4 million hryvnias. Really great naming, I see, for all these companies. It feels like the same person was naming all of them. And 4 million hryvnias came from the Odessa logistics company Arena Marin. Well, basically Arena. All of these seem to be completely unrelated organizations. And if you think about it logically, some unrelated organizations suddenly contribute huge amounts of money for a person, just enormous sums. And not all of them are even listed here. Rebrov also transferred money, as I mentioned, and there was some director, Kenya, of some museum, who somehow managed to come up with 8 million hryvnias, that's about $200,000 right now, and she just took it and transferred it to the powerful Yermak, who is a powerful manager. Wonderful. And this is exactly where NABU and SAP should get interested and check the organizations and companies that were involved in transferring the funds, because, well, since they're connected to Yermak and Yermak is accused of corruption, then, well, there's just one step left to the very conclusion that I hope you, dear viewers, will make in the comments. But no, we don't make that conclusion. You know, it's like that meme from Friends where Joey is with one of the characters, with Phoebe. Phoebe asks Joey, Joey, about this. It's about the French language, as far as I remember, she's teaching him. She says the words to him syllable by syllable, and he repeats them, but when he tries the whole word, it doesn't work. It's basically the same here. So it turns out to be a very interesting situation where no one is to blame, but Yermak, a person of the purest soul, was released, and now he's going straight to the front to help the military. After all, he's a deputy, he has a deputy's ID, he has a law degree, and he takes his deputy's ID, his law degree, and goes straight to the front to save the military. From what and why, it's absolutely impossible to understand, but he's going. As for corruption, of course, this case is not the end of it. Let's see how many people have been imprisoned for corruption. Not a single bribe taker for the whole year, not one. In 2026, the courts didn't imprison a single bribe taker. There were 814 cases, just think about it. Not one, not two, 814, and not a single sentence resulted in actual imprisonment. Most of the violations were simply issues with asset declarations. In 2025, there were sentences, but in 2026, there were none. And then all sorts of bearded figures start speaking out. Barbershop guys from the battalion in Monaco, from restaurants like Yukipis, and nail salons like Frint. And they talk about how now is not the time to deal with corruption, not the time for elections, prices are through the roof, and the main thing now is to focus on victory. But what kind of victory is it if hundreds of millions of bucks are just being scooped up by them? It's like Scrooge McDuck's vault. And then these little dogs, the Beagle Boys, once they've taken everything, there's nothing left. So you have to ask, why did you even bother guarding his vault? It's extremely interesting. I remember a similar situation. I got disappointed in all these so-called powerful managers back when Yushchenko was president, as far as I remember. At first he seemed quite interesting because, first of all, the man wasn't a fool. Well, at that time he didn't seem like a fool. What was his position there? Head of the National Bank, I think. Head of the National Bank. He also managed something else. He knew English, looked good on camera, could speak without notes, and overall, well, there was no reason to doubt that the man had, experience, administrative management of a huge team at the National Bank and then knowledge of economics. Again, many thought he would help the country because he was a financier, an economist, and now he would turn the country into another Switzerland, basically. We keep joking about this. And what happened was, right after Yushchenko came to power, he ordered a huge clock face to be put up on Independence Square, and this clock was supposed to show how many corrupt officials would be jailed. How many corrupt officials do you think were jailed? That clock was later taken down in disgrace, no one was jailed, and everyone literally mocked the whole thing. It was a long time ago, but still. It seemed funny, but it was already sad, and it became clear that no one would jail anyone because why? Because the right hand will never hit the left, because they both belong to whom? To one body, And this body is busy with certain tasks in which both the left and right hands are involved. So right now, exactly the same thing is happening, only the situation in the country is much, much, much worse than it was under Yushchenko. From Dabula, basically, and what are they telling us here? Only 6 cases of bribery or bribery attempts were considered in court, and all the suspects ended up getting fines. It also turned out that the number of cases decreased by almost a third. It used to be 1,109, and now it's 814. So, what? Since there's more corrupt money but fewer corruption cases, well, isn't that logical? No, of course, it's not illogical. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. Corruption just eats away at the country from the inside like rust eats away at some metal objects. That's about how corruption works, only even more. Even more actively. But besides that, the war, of course, doesn't stop either. Corruption is one thing, but the war keeps moving forward. And even without EU money, the General Staff revealed the geography of the latest strikes by the armed forces of Ukraine. Besides Moscow, besides those very Kimki, it seems they also struck a number of other targets. On the night of May 17th to May 18th, among the targets was an entire boat in the Kaspiysk area. This is deep behind enemy lines, then a number of Russian drone control points, and then enemy personnel. And there was something else, a patrol plane, a K-27 helicopter, a station basically. A lot of things were destroyed here. Well, what can I say? Victory, we defeated everyone, and now we can return victorious. And abroad, they see the war, just like Ukraine, as a testing ground where weapons are being tested. Well, for example, Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google, now an independent entrepreneur, says that Ukraine has become a laboratory for the war of the future, where everything that moves is being destroyed. And according to him, the combat experience of the Ukrainian armed forces shows that tanks, armored vehicles, and artillery no longer determine the outcome at the front. Their place is being taken by drones, AI, and coordinated attacks by robotic systems. Well, and all of this is being considered so that war becomes more automated and fewer people die. Eric Schmidt seems to think only robots are on Ukraine's front lines. Just like these same efficient managers recently claimed that robotization has reached its peak. They showed some strange tractor with what looked like wire, a weapon strapped to it, some kind of barrel, and supposedly this tractor forced the Russians to give up their positions. Well, maybe, of course, I'm not arguing. Why argue about that at all? Naturally, a tractor is such a powerful thing. So, yeah. Well, so what? Let's take another look at the managers. There are a lot of them here. Where are they? Here, and this time they'll be invited by Zelensky.
Well then, let's listen to the clowns. Go ahead, comrades.
Yes, now these managers are performing. Here, for example, there's a Cossack-style brother-in-arms. Well, you can immediately tell he's military, a person of exceptionally strong will, physically fit, clearly, and an intellectual just everything. And now he's talking about how everyone, literally everyone, should serve their country in some way.
But first and foremost, you need to start with yourself. Yes, to accept these circumstances.
Yes, exactly.
To accept these challenges.
Right.
And start moving.
Where are the PowerPoints here so we can move in sync?
Exactly, on this path. And to see how I can be useful at this stage of life, not just in these circumstances, not just for myself. So what use am I?
Yeah.
What can I do for the people around me? And this doesn't just apply to the troops.
And what did you do, I wonder? Well, one might ask, what has this bearded wonder done for the people near him, the people around him? What, just babbling in headphones in front of the camera? Well, this is one of those thousands of talking heads that former press secretary of Zelensky, Yulia Mendel, talked about when describing the concept and, you could say, the strategy of Zelensky's information campaigns. They say that people will believe anything, I was going to say quickly, but really anything if you repeat it often enough. And if 1,000 heads repeat it. Well, one of these 1,000 heads apparently benefits Zelensky, and since Zelensky is the state now, then the state as well. We have Fursa, who is now going to criticize this very Yulia Mendel. Fursa, the son of a general, didn't serve in the military, became an economist, not a soldier, but as you see, an economist. And now he's going to explain what's wrong with Mendel? He's looking at the ceiling. Apparently the Anunnaki are sending him some signals, or maybe there's just a prompt written up there to help him remember 3 words in a row and not get confused in front of the camera. Anyway, let's listen.
Is she actually recruited? What's happening? How did you figure it out?
She turned into the local crazy woman a long time ago, but she used to have some kind of connection to the authorities. But since she was a nobody and stayed a nobody, she lost all of that.
Fursa immediately started bad-mouthing her. Well, of course, if you dehumanize a person... By the way, that's a tactic that was used in the 1940s, you know by whom? So, dehumanizing a certain nation. Here it's about dehumanizing a person. To say, well, she's just the local crazy woman, so she has no objectivity at all, and there's no point in listening to her. But again, trusting Fursa, haha.
And she wants to draw attention to herself. She wants people to talk about her. And she got carried away. Her mind couldn't handle it.
But I'm curious, doesn't Fursa want people to notice him, to talk about him? So why does he act like he's just popped out of nowhere? Every single day he's right in front of us with that face of his, with that overactive face and mouth, and he talks about all sorts of things. Every day this guy is in the studio talking about how she wants to be popular. Man, even though you're in the studio every day, that doesn't make you popular. Nobody likes Fursa. People only listen to him when they have to. I think only on the YouTube channel Europe for Ukrainians, because that's where they show him. But if someone just showed me a guy like that without a blog, I'd throw that TV farther than I could see, meaning I'd turn it off and forget about it for years. Actually, I have a TV, but I only use it for games and nothing else. By the way, the TV is big and good.
And then it started. All the Russian narrative she talks so much about, she started spreading Russian narratives. She writes about how we need to surrender, about how there's a dictatorship in Ukraine, about how we need to go out and protest.
But there's no dictatorship in Ukraine, of course. That's not true. No, we're going to keep going, and we need victory. We need the borders of 1991 without a dictatorship. In a purely democratic country, a country on a smartphone, Ukraine on a smartphone, digital consoles on a smartphone, digital democracy, everything is digital, everything is cool.
For Russians, if she had reached someone influential, there would have been more problems, but luckily she didn't reach that kind of audience.
Yeah, Carlson, who has millions and millions of listeners, he's not influential, not an authority at all. Carlson, for us, well, just some whitewash and paint type. He just sat down at the microphone.
Everyone can see how she lost her mind. What's surprising is that they allow such filth on TV, and how Pasha Kukta can still live with her.
I'm just curious, since when do they let such filth on TV with all those swear words and vulgar language? I mean, as for journalism, I recently watched a few videos of Soviet people. They were being asked something on the street. It doesn't even matter what about, just how well they spoke. How beautifully they spoke, without using swear words, just to connect ordinary words, without all those like Ukrainians, those barbershop types, always repeating, look, like, extremely. There are some additional words besides the swear words, and in fact many more swear words there. And they try to connect words into phrases, phrases into sentences. Well, they try to form some kind of more or less coherent text out of them, but naturally it doesn't work. Well, you can see that with Fursa too. It's just some swear words, just some vulgarities. They call each other names in the kind that maybe we used back in 9th or 10th grade, and even then probably not anymore. So there's this character about 50 years old sitting there and telling all sorts of things, mixing in swear words. Then let's listen to a deputy, once again talking about how Russia is falling apart. This is Deputy Ariev. I'll show him to you now. Look, what a skinny character, again, telling stories. Most of the time he talks about invincibility, power, going to the front and things like that. But now this deputy, again, with those very animated facial expressions, after fighting the enemy, I think, with certain drinks in a restaurant, and maybe he managed a couple of cutlets, maybe even 3, maybe not just a couple. After all, he's a strong man. Now he's going to tell us that Russia is falling apart.
Russia's immediate collapse, clearly.
Yeah. His oratory skills are just turned up to the max. Even the journalist turned away and is thinking, oh God, who are we inviting?
I believe that the collapse of Russia is inevitable, and in this case, it will definitely be an internal conflict that will happen sooner or later.
Can you speak without every 2 words? Well, it's strange to listen to after all. He's a deputy. He should come out and speak the plain truth into the microphone in order to serve his people, to pull the country out of the enemy's clutches. And here we are, stammering even in front of the camera. Well, what can you do?
The collapse of the Soviet Union and the fall processes in Russia will definitely unfold.
How is the Soviet Union related to this? I honestly have no idea who does the choosing. I'd like to ask you, dear viewers, to write in the comments who chose him, who voted for him. Well, not just for him, for Fedina, for this one, for that miracle, for the others. No one says anything. Who chose them? They must have gotten into the Rada somehow, but it's not clear how. How did they get in there and now they don't leave, or what? Through the passage, I wanted to say, the back one, through the front passage again, in the Verkhovna Rada. They ran past the guard, threw their briefcase onto the bench. That's it, this is my seat as a deputy. Well, that just doesn't happen. Well, maybe it does, but anyway, whatever. That's how things are. Corruption, corruption, corruption everywhere, and of course, war. They don't interfere with each other. They've always gone together. All of this has always been combined in the most unimaginable ways and forms. And now we have this kind of tight little fist with the corrupt officials, with the deputies, with the executive, judicial, and other branches of government. On this wonderful note, goodbye, everyone.
40-year-old men usually have families and children. And some have their own businesses. They need a little time to settle things, to hand things over. To write a will, to have it notarized, so that if you die, your partner doesn't have to run around to different offices and get the runaround. It's a sign of respect for the person whom the state is asking to go and defend it.